Hi everybody, and thank you for joining me. Now this week we're going to be looking at hand tools. Now we're not going to go into power tools, we're going to stick with hand tools. So the power tools will be in a later episode. So let's take a look at some of the hand tools a basic woodworker's going to need. So for starters, we're going to need something to measure and mark with. Okay, so let's look at measuring and marking tools. We've got tape measure, of course. Make sure it's a tape measure with a locking on it because it'll save you loads of hassle. Make sure you go for a 3 metre or 5 metre. You shouldn't need anything longer than that. Then you're going to need a pencil. This is a typical carpenter's pencil, which is flat in shape to stop it rolling off the bench. Okay, so we've got the tape measure and pencil sorted. Now let's take a look at hammers. So this is the claw hammer, which you would use mostly in the weight shop. It's got a claw, of course, for pulling nails out. The shafts come in hickory, or sometimes they'll come with a steel or even a fiberglass shaft. The next one is a pin hammer or a straight pane hammer. This will be used for knocking panel pins in and fine work. Normally come with a wooden shaft again, normally in hickory. You can sometimes get fiberglass or metal ones, but most of the time they will have a wooden shaft these. Then you've got the wooden mallet. Don't use your claw hammer on chisels. I don't care whether they say you can or not. Don't do it. You will ruin your chisels. Use a wooden mallet or a rubber mallet. This is the wooden mallet. The head is removable. If you just bang this shaft on the bench, the head slides down the shaft and you can take the heads off if you need to replace them. The next one is a rubber mallet. This one comes again with a hickory shaft. Again, you can get them with steel shafts, but they're not very common. You don't have to have a rubber mallet, but it is handy. You can also get them where the head is half white and half black, because these black heads can leave black marks on your work if you're not careful. So try and get one if you can, which has got either a fully white head or a half white, half black head. So you've got your hammer. Now let's take a look at some different types of saws. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the saws. Here, the first one, this is what's called a panel saw. They normally come in sort of different lengths. Normally the most popular is sort of 22 or 26 inch in length. Now you'll see on it something called TPI. What that stands for is teeth per inch. So the more TPI, the more teeth per inch, then the finer the cut. So if you're cutting things like melamine or plywood and things like that, you're going to want something that's quite fine. You're not going to want too coarse a cut. If you're cross-cutting timber, decking, joists, things like that, you can get away with less TPI, less teeth per inch, because it'll be a lot coarser cut and it'll go through timber a lot swifter. The next one is a tenon saw. Basically, it was made originally to cut tenons, as the name suggests, but now it's used for all types of small pieces of timber. Can also be used with a mitre block for cutting mitres. Try and go for a good quality saw. This applies to all the saws we're looking at. Try and go for a good quality, because you only get what you pay for. And if you go for a cheap one, it's not going to last you 5 minutes. You're going to end up throwing it away. So always try and go for the best brand that your budget will allow you to go for, and it'll sort of last you for years. The next one's a coping saw. This one's got a very fine blade, used for cutting caves in timber, things like skating board scribes and things like that, which is the same as this one. This is a fret saw, which is basically the same as the coping saw, but it's got a lot deeper throat on it, as you can see. So you'll be able to cut a lot deeper timber than you would with a coping saw. Now this one at the top, this is an axe saw. I know this is woodwork, not metalwork, but every now and again you're going to have to cut something metal. So it's well worth investing in one and keeping it to hand, so that if ever you need it, you've got it there. Okay, so that's saws covered. Now let's take a look at chisels. So let's just take a look at chisels. Now chisels tend to come with either fiberglass handles, which is like this top one here, or they come with wooden handles, which is this one at the bottom. Now, fiberglass handles are probably a little bit harder wearing. but wooden handles are more the traditional sort of chisel. Personally myself, I would go for a fiberglass handle because I think they last longer, and I just think they're better. They're just nicer to use. Sizes I would invest in chisels. You don't need every single size of chisel, but I've thought about this long and hard, and I think the most common ones you're going to want, there's six really. There's 6mm, 9mm, 12mm, 18mm, 25mm, and 38mm. Now you can buy chisels in sets, so it's worth looking if it's more economical to buy a set of chisels rather than buying individual ones. And again, get the best quality one your budget will stretch to, because if you don't, they look exactly the same, but when you start and use them, you'll have to sharpen them a lot more with the cheaper grade steels than what you will with a quality chisel. So that's the chisels covered. Now let's take a look at some different types of squares. Okay, so let's look at the different types of squares. This is a basic carpenter's square, which just measures basically 90-degree angles. Usually comes with a rosewood handle with a brass face so that it keeps the angle true. It keeps the face nice, because if it had a wooden face, it would wear with use. So they normally have a brass face to them, and they normally have brass pins going through them to secure the blade to the handle. This next one's the combination square. It's called combination square. It's called combination square because it does a number of things in one square. It will measure your 45-degree angles and 90-degree angles. Most of them come with a little spirit level you can see there. And also that little brass thing there unscrews out, and that is a little pin to mark your timber with. So that's really handy. Combination squares are really good. They're a little bit more cumbersome than a normal set square, but if you need to mark 45s regular, it'd probably be worth investing in one, or even get both if I were you. The next one is a bevel square. Again, they come with a rosewood handle with brass parts to it to prevent it wearing. This one slides in and out, and it also changes angle, so you can get any angles. It's very good if you want to replicate an angle on several pieces of wood, like if you're doing a staircase or something like that. It's very handy for that, because you can lock it off at a certain angle and then just transfer your angle from piece to piece. And then this top one, now this is a rafter square. It's basically what roofers use, but just lately, these have started creeping their way into the workshops. So a lot of joiners, bench joiners, are using these in workshops now. So you can pick them up very reasonable now. So it'd probably be worth investing in one. Very good for scribing lines down timber. They have little steps where you can put your pencil in and scribe a line down a piece of timber. So they're very good for that. So that's a rafter square. Okay, so that's squares. Now let's take a look at screwdrivers. Okay, let's have a look at some screwdrivers. Now, the easiest way to buy screwdrivers is buy yourself a set of screwdrivers, and they'll have Phillips and Posi-Drive and slotted in there, and there'll be a vast array of different sizes, so it covers pretty much everything. If you buy single screwdrivers, it can be more expensive. Always try and feel the handles on the screwdrivers, because if you're doing a lot of screwing in the workshop, you find that if the handle's not comfortable, you will get blisters on your hands, and it'll not be very nice to hold at all. This next one is a interchangeable bit screwdriver. It basically takes the bits like you use on, say, a impact driver or something like that, or electric screwdriver. It takes the same bits. Very handy to have one in the workshop. I would definitely have one. For what they cost, you may as well have one in the workshop, because when you need them, you can put torque bits in them and things like that. So they really are worth having in the workshop. And then this bottom one. Now, these stubby screwdrivers are a godsend. When you need a stubby screwdriver, you really need one. So it's always handy to at least have a slotted one and a Posi-Drive one. Probably a Posi-Drive number 2 and a slotted one in your workshop somewhere, because when you need one for a job and you can't get a full-size screwdriver in the gap, then they're sort of invaluable. So definitely invest in a couple of those. They're really cheap and you've always got them if you need them. Okay, so that's the screwdrivers. Now let's take a look at a couple of planes that you really ought to have. So let's take a look at planes. The first one here, this is a hand plane. Just a good all-round plane, definitely worth having one. Normally rosewood handles on them. The blades are detachable so that you can take them out and sharpen them up. Just a good all-round plane. I'd definitely invest in one of these for your workshop. This next one is what's called a block plane. Now these are really handy when you want to take small amounts of timber off or do any fine work or just take a little bit of an edge off a door or something like that, or a drawer. They really are an invaluable bit of kit. So plane wise, I would definitely invest in both of these. I would get the hand plane and get the block plane. Again, try and get the best quality you can because you only get what you pay for. And if you get a really quality one, it'll last you years. Okay, so that's the planes. Now we're going to need some clamps. Okay, so let's take a look at clamps now. There's a vast array of clamps, and there's an old carpenter's joke where they say you can never have enough clamps. You just want to get as many as you can because it's amazing how many you'll need when you start making projects. The first one here is what's called a G clamp. Comes in different sizes. If you're only going to buy one size of this type of clamp, I would go for sort of a 20 centimetre or 200 millimetre clamp. Really good all-rounder. You will use them a lot. So as I say, get as many as you can because you will use them. The next one here, this is what's called a ratchet clamp. It's basically like a cartridge gun. You just pump it and then it's got a lever behind that you just press just to release it. They're all right. They're quick and good clamps to quickly clamp something, but you can't get as much pressure on as you can with a G clamp. But they are definitely worth having a few kicking about in the workshop. This next one is what's called a speed clamp. Really handy if you're laminating boards together and they're not quite level. You can just put one of these across the joint and it will squeeze the joint together and sort of level your boards up. Really handy and very fast and very versatile clamp. Definitely have a couple of these. You can get them in different sizes. I'd just go probably for a mid-range size and have a couple of these, or if you can, just get 2 or 3 different sizes to keep in the workshop. This next one is a mitre clamp. So basically it's for holding 2 pieces of timber together. So they hold the mitres together while the adhesive goes off. You can get these as well where you can use a tenon saw with them to actually cut the mitre and sort of glue it at the same time. But you won't use them a hell of a lot, but you will use them, and when you need them, it's a really valuable bit of kit to have kicking about. And for the price they're not too expensive, so I'd definitely at least have one of them in the workshop. And this long one, this is what's called a sash clamp. Basically, you use this for gluing projects up or laminating boards together, things like that, where you've got to stretch across a wide surface. Normally, the shortest one in these is probably a 60 centimetre, 600 mil, and they go right up to normally about 2 metres, 2.5 metres in length. And probably, if you're only going to have a few of these, get yourself a few small ones, 3 foot say, and then probably just a couple of 6 foot ones, which is 1.8 metres in the workshop, and that you should be fine at that. Again, get yourself quality clamps because the cheaper ones, they do snap and they don't grip very well. So it's definitely worth investing, at least in a sort of a mid-range one. Don't go really cheap because you will regret it. Now, because you've got chisels and planes, of course, you're going to need something to keep them sharp. So let's have a look at some sharpening solutions. So, of course, when you've got chisels and planes, you're going to need something to sharpen them with. Now, an oil stone, they tend to come in wooden blocks like this one on the left here. You can also get just loose stones, and you can either make yourself a block or mount it into a bench or a toolbox or something like that. They tend to have a coarse and a fine side on them. That's why there's that line down the middle. One side will be coarser than the other side, so you just flip it over depending whether you're just finishing it off or you've got a chip in it. You need to really sort of grind it back. This thing at the side here is what's called a guide, an owning guide, which will actually, you put a planer blade or a chisel in there and it will actually hold it at the right handle. And it's got little wheels on that just go up and down the oil stone just to give it a nice exact finish. This little bottle here would have oil in it. It's important you put oil on your stones. And I would steer well clear of cheap stones, because what you'll find is they'll gouge out. As you're sharpening your chisels or your planer blades, you will get like a gouge coming out where the stone's worn away. And then as soon as that happens, then the stone's basically useless unless you get it flattened off again, because what's going to happen then is you're going to basically get your blades going curved rather than flat. So I definitely invest in a good quality stone, because you're going to need it and you're going to use it quite often. So steer well clear of the cheap and nasty ones. Now, you're probably going to be based in a little workshop, but if you need to take your tools out on site anywhere or around the home, of course you're going to need something to put your tools in. So let's take a quick look at some storage solutions. So if you're going to be moving your tools around, of course, you're going to need something to move them around in. Now, you can go from this, like a simple bag, which you can get really cheap. Then you can go onto sort of an odd box like this, normally come with wheels on. These are handy because the stronger ones, you can stand on them as well if you need to gain a bit of height for a job. Then you can go to this one on the end here. This is a riser one. It comes in other makes as well, but these are like detachable boxes which clip together and make yourself a bespoke tool chest up. You can have screws in the top, and then you can have bigger items below. And then you can buy the trolley where the box fits on, so you can wheel it about. But it just depends on your budget, how much you want to spend. I mean, if you're not leaving the workshop, if you're going to be in the workshop all the time, then you might not even bother having any of these transportation means, because you're just not going to be moving your tools around, so you don't need them. But if you are likely to go out on site, or if you're working around the home and want to take your tools around with you, it is worth investing in one, because it's going to save you walking about so much if you can just take all your tools to the site with you. Now, if you are keeping your tools based in your workshop, there's nothing looks nicer than a nice tool display. So why not make yourself a tool display? So if you're planning on not moving your tools and you're lucky enough to have a workspace where you're going to be working all the time, it's well worth making yourself something like this where you can have all your tools on display. You've spent a lot of money on your tools, so it's nice to have them all on display for everybody to see. And it looks great. It makes you look really professional, and it's easy for you to find anything when you want it. Everything's at hand. So I'd definitely, for the sake of a little bit of wood, knock yourself something up and enjoy looking at your investment. Thank you for watching, and thank you so much for all the subscribers we've had this week. We've had a record number of subscribers this week, and it just keeps growing and growing. So if you like this, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you tell all your friends. Keep woodworking.